Hello, Royal Protectors. I'm King Link, and welcome to my review of Dishonored 2. Dishonored was actually a really solid game that came out in 2012. I actually played it like 4 times myself. I know a bunch of people who really love it. But the thing is, I don't know why I missed out on Dishonored 2 when it was released in 2016. The good news is I didn't have a channel at that time. I do now, so I get a chance to check it out and review it properly. This is a return back to Dunwall from the first Dishonored game, and to say stuff went badly last time I visited the universe is an understatement. Dishonored really isn't a happy game. Even in the most positive ending of both of these games, it's still quite a dystopian future. So hang on to your hats, I've cut together a bunch of footage to make this video, so I hope you enjoy it. Now, the first thing I'll say is the game does look pretty good. I mean, check this out. This is supposed to be the same world we've seen before, but everything feels a little bit bigger, better, and more detailed. Not necessarily more beautiful, as I've mentioned, but it's really a good-looking game. The levels here are really well developed, and there's tons of stuff to see and do. There's multiple ways through almost every area, and there's tons of rooms that are not necessarily the main path of the game, but worth exploring if you want to collect everything. I'll talk more about that when I get to gameplay. I actually had a lot of time hunting for additional options in almost every room I was in, because it's so worth finding a new painted or portrait, maybe some money. Even if I didn't need the money, it's still exciting to explore the spaces. The one place that Dishonored 2's graphics are lacking is the enemies, in my opinion. There's really not enough different ones. Almost all the enemies here are stuff we've seen before. There's 3 really new enemies. I'll save one of those for you to find out, but there's this hazard of bloodflies and these clockwork robots that both are really cool, but they're only in a few places. And I just wish there was more to this world beyond what we saw in Dishonored 1. Similarly, since we're talking about negatives, well, let's talk about the story, unfortunately. The first game's story was really well told, in my opinion. I liked it a lot. It was all about your Empress getting killed and kind of your trip to get back at those who killed her and so on. There was betrayal and more. And I actually loved how it evolved over that entire storyline. Now, Dishonored 2 almost takes a back seat in this. It seems more comfortable to rest on Dishonored's lore than really evolve it or tell a new story. The game starts with a nice tutorial where you play as Emily, and you find out that Corvo has been teaching her the same abilities and stuff that he served him so well as the Royal Protector in the first game. Okay, it's a bit strange that she's the Empress and she's learning this, but we'll let it slide. At least it gives a reason for these characters to be so tied together. The opening of the game shows Emily and Corvo dealing with a arriving duke and a strange woman who claims to be Emily's Aunt Delilah. I won't go too much further with this, but this is a problem to me. Not that it just seems out of place, but Delilah should sound familiar to big fans of the series. And it's understandable that neither Emily or Corvo know her, but you see, Delilah was a character in the DLC of Dishonored, the Brigmore Witches, where Dodd, the old assassin, stopped her, either killing her or sticking her in a painting. But she's already been taken care of in this series of games. Now, the problem is she's back, but she's not a main enough character to warrant a resurrection all of a sudden. In fact, her coming back instead of a random character being added to the world there is worse, in my opinion. We're 1 game in, and we're repeating our villains from a DLC? Now, through this, Corvo actually ends up losing his power, and then you get a choice of Emily or Corvo as a main character. The one you don't choose gets trapped in stone, and a small spoiler, but they don't actually get out until after you beat the game, so they're locked away for the entire story. Now, for story reasons, this sucks because Emily and Corvo have an interesting bond. Why didn't Dishonored 2 play with that or give some connection between these characters outside of just a goal for the other character to play to? Worse, the other enemies other than Delilah are kind of really flat figures. You have to go take each one down. The Duke you see is kind of good, but really, most of the missions are go here and kill a person that we don't like. In the first game, that was part of it, but you were being directed by a group of people. Here, it's just naming names that you have to go up against, and the fact is, I wish Dishonored 2 had the level of quality to their enemies that Dishonored 1 had. The conspiracy really comes in at the last minute here as well, and I don't feel like the enemies are really working together or working against you directly, even though they definitely should be in theory. I feel like this game grasps for connections between Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2, and ignore the fact that either main character had a very strong connection to the first game, and instead focused on these odd connections to the DLC of all things. In addition, the biggest problem I have with the world is there's nothing really exceptional here. If you played the first game, there was actually a really great mission where two characters, Granny Rags and Slackjaw, they had a 3 to 4 part mission arc between the missions you play, and each one evolved the story a little bit more for them. Dishonored 2 actually has nothing like that, and I kind of wonder why. Is it because that you can select a mission? Because there would be ways around that, but it loses one of its best world building tools where you make choices that don't really affect later missions. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I did not see any real connection to earlier choices made through my playthrough. Now, with that said, let's talk about the gameplay of Dishonored 2, because while the story is definitely weak, the gameplay is as good as I remembered. Perhaps better. The biggest change between Dishonored and Dishonored 2 is actually the levels. They're huge open worlds where players can explore wherever they want. Players can actually go between a few locations without a loading screen, and I do applaud that, to be clear. Now, when I say open world, I do mean more free reign in the area, not necessarily the ability to go anywhere in the entire game at any time. There's also a lot of ability for players to cross the map in their own way. I love to go vertical personally and climb on rooftops or such, and Dishonored 2 actually gladly seems to allow me to do that, even offering me good paths. Whereas you can also fight your way through, destroy machinery, even sneak through areas, go underground sometimes, and there's always good, interesting ways to explore the world. There was actually a point where I felt that I had completely broken a sequence breaking, and what that means is basically I did something that I felt was unexpected and advanced faster than I think the game planned for me to. Oddly, I don't know if I did actually, because Dishonored 2 seems to allow you to push its limits and try to break it without breaking, and in this case it seemed that the game did provide me options from where I stood, even though I don't think it intended me to ever get there outside of tricking it. Now, I love the levels here, though, and my favorite might actually be the second major one, the Insanitarium. There's actually a time travel mechanic in another level that's excellent, even if it takes away your special powers for that one level, which I wasn't thrilled with. There's also a very cool clockwork mansion that's really clever. That's where I did the sequence breaking, and I love the way the mechanics work. This kind of steampunk world is excellent for that. The thing is, though, I like almost every level in this game, but I do have to call out the last level. It's kind of... It's a repeat of the level in the first game, and it's done in a weaker fashion. The same tricks still work, but there's no real reason to repeat that exact level without changing something interesting. It could have been done so much better somewhere else. Similarly, the last boss... yeah, there's parts of that kind of stunk, and I'm going to avoid talking spoilers there. Now, the stealth is a bit harder in Dishonored 2, from what I remember of the first Dishonored game. Especially on higher difficulties, it seems like the guards are really reactive. Now, there's tons of places to hide, but the guards are really observant, and they don't really give you a lot of time to react if they notice you at all, especially if you're standing out in the open. I don't even think there's a good way to really peek out, and I found myself abusing the save system to try to make progress quite often. I will say that there's only 9 missions in the game, but there's so many ways to progress through the game that you will want to replay them. In fact, I like this game because almost every build seems to work here, which, compared to Arkane's other game, Prey, alright, I'll say it, I don't like Prey that much. I feel like there's only a few builds that really work for explorers in Prey. Dishonored 2 allows almost any build to fully explore the map, and that's really good. In fact, there's a number of places on almost every Dishonored 2 map I haven't even felt the need to explore, and that allows me to go back and find more. And finally, let's talk about the special abilities of the game. As mentioned, Corvo does lose his abilities at the beginning of the game, and after the first mission is done, you have to play it powerless. no matter who you choose, you actually will get a mission meeting with the outsider from the first game. And either character, Emily or Corvo, gain the void powers again. However, Emily and Corvo actually get different sets of abilities, which makes for an interesting game, especially if you're going to replay it. There is a harder option that I'll mention. Players can actually skip all the special powers in the game, and it makes for a much harder playthrough, I imagine. But if you want to handicap yourself, well, of course you can. Welcome to Dishonored 2. I will say, though, the powers in the game feel a little weak. I did like the teleport, that's always a good one in this series, but I didn't see many powers that I felt like I needed. It still is what makes Dishonored 2 feel unique and special as a game, and I particularly like the ability to spirit walk. Corvo's dark vision feels essential at times as well. I missed it as when I played as Emily, and the ability to bend time is also nice, but nothing was like I have to get that power. In addition, after you finish the game, New Game Plus actually unlocks the ability to have both sets of powers, Corvo's and Emily's, so people can be even more powerful and choose any power they want. There's also high and low chaos playthroughs as well. It's about the same as the first game, and the game also includes 3 save files, which is a nice feature, so players can actually choose if they want to go play as Emily, play as Corvo, and then play an unpowered run through, however you want to do it. And each game actually also, each save file has their own list of save files, so it makes it a lot easier to choose between them. And really, okay, that's all of Dishonored 2. It's actually a really fun game, but I don't have any really strong negatives or positive feelings outside of what I've already talked about. There's one logic puzzle that I absolutely adored. I solved it with a logic grid, but outside of that one thing, Dishonored 2 is what it is. It's a sequel to Dishonored. The thing is, Dishonored 2 really doesn't do anything that special. The story is a little weak. I love the levels, as I've mentioned. The gameplay is about what you would expect, maybe a little harder than the first game, but in general, Dishonored 2 only gives a sequel to the first Dishonored game, and it doesn't do enough to stand out. So let me be clear though, I like Dishonored 2, because I like Dishonored. So ask yourself something as you're thinking. Do you want more Dishonored specifically for the gameplay that made Dishonored 1 so popular? If so, this is the game for you. And because of that, I do give Dishonored 2 a 4 out of 5. Yeah, Dishonored 2 doesn't do anything that wrong, but it's also not that special. Still, if you like the first game, I recommend this game quite a bit. This didn't change my world, but it did give me already 17 hours of play, and I'm sure at some point I am going to give it a full second run through rather than play a few missions with Corvo, and maybe attempt the no power playthrough as well. It's fun for that. And that was Dishonored 2. Now, I hope everyone likes these stealthy AAA games, because unfortunately we're going to have to talk about another one. It's a little bit too similar, and I probably wouldn't have put these back to back, but because of the humble monthly bundle, well, we're going to have to tackle another one. That's right, it's Assassin's Creed Origin time. We'll be hiding again, taking out our targets a second time, though this time without the peaceful options. Everyone will fall. And if you're hearing this, well, welcome to the end of the video. Now, thank you very much for watching the whole thing, and consider subscribing. We've come this far, so I want to give you a personal invitation to the Hyrulean Knights. And if you're already a member, make sure you ring that bell so you can be the first to see my next video. Until next time, Knights, I'm King Link, and thank you for watching.